everybody. This is Raul for Bass Musician Magazine, and we have today the great honor and pleasure of speaking with bassist Victoria Rothman, coming to you directly via Skype from New York City, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Victoria?
That's correct. Well, I'm in New York State right now, but
Okay,
generally I'm in one or the other.
perfect. Oh, it's for those of us that don't live in the city, we just kind of blend it all together. I know it's really different for people that live there, but it's cool wherever you're coming from. So Victoria plays bass for the band Between the Rain, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we progress. But tell us about your bass journey. How did you get started and get going playing bass?
Sure. Basically, I started playing instruments when I was around in the third grade. I started on violin. I was in school and they said, well, you have a choice between either a chorus or you can do orchestra. And I kind of decided I didn't want to sing and kind of picked violin out of a hat.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started playing violin, stayed with that for a couple of grades, decided I'd rather be playing piano. So I switched that. I had a few private lessons, was learning how to sight read, all of that. Um, and for some reason or another, I just kind of decided, well, I'm off to drums now. So I dabbled in drums. And then finally, I decided I didn't want to have to choose between rhythm and melody. So there I was with then going to bass. And,
Gotcha.
and yeah, so when I was around 15, I begged my dad for a bass and finally got one from a pawn shop.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Unbeknownst to me, my brother had also asked for a bass, my older brother. And it was funny that he got a bass before I did. He's the older. And
Mm-hmm.
I ended up seeing his bass and playing it and just like begging him like, "Oh, can I play your bass now? Can I just like can we switch basses?"
Sure.
And so I ended up playing his, and it's funny because I really like it. I haven't found another bass that I'll play.
Well, and it's fortunate when you can find an instrument, and sometimes again there is I don't think it ever hurts to have experience with other instruments for multiple reasons. A, of course, the percussive elements of bass, because you got melody, you've got percussion, you're kind of blending the two together. It can help you work with a drummer. And I'll mention that the band you're playing with, it's trio, so you've got guitar, drums, and bass. So right there, you've got to lock it in where the two of you are doing, you can't be missing a beat there, and this works for you because you've been there and you've kind of seen it. On the other hand, it can get challenging too because you may know what to expect of your fellow musicians because you've played some of those instruments too. And sometimes if you're trying to go, okay, I need you to do this, I need you to see this rhythm. I run into that a lot with Latin rhythms that for some, and I'm going to stereotype here, but some American drummers sometimes have trouble with Latin tempos. And I think a lot of it just comes to what you're used to feeling and you're hearing it. And so I was working with a drummer and we're doing a samba, and when he played it, it sounded like a German march or something. And I'm like, dude, this this has some swing to it. It's got some cadence. It's like think of somebody walking. I mean, this isn't. We're not goose stepping along here. We're just this is like beautiful woman on the beach rhythm. You gotta see it. And it was challenged with it, and so I knew what I wanted from him, but I couldn't do it myself. If I could have, I would have said, "Here, watch. This is what I'm talking about." But
Yeah.
anyway, so your brother and you got basses, or you
Yeah.
you used his a lot. Did he keep playing after all, or?
He actually did. And he never sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ended up yeah, just kind of not touching it. He does other stuff, but he left
Yeah.
the beats to me, so hey.
There you go. There you go. And so what happened next? Where did you go from there? How did you get involved with again playing with other people? How did that happen?
Um well, actually I'd started playing pretty soon after I got the bass. I had always been pretty good at playing by ear. Actually, that's a lot of what I do now. I taught myself for about a year
Hmm.
before I was instructed. And once I kind of jumped on the internet and said, "Hey, who else is around? Who wants to play? Who's looking for a bass player?" Because I knew I didn't want to start my own thing. Um, and I started playing. It was always with like a bunch of like boys at that time.
Hmm.
I just kind of fell into that. And so I joined my first band, and it was mostly originals and some covers. And from there, I kind of went on from musical project to musical project. And finally, after I got back from music school, got back into Brooklyn, I decided to go on Craigslist and try to find who else was looking for a bass player.
Hmm.
And that's where I happened to find Tim. Um, and yeah, we met and we listened to a lot of music. We played for like hours the first day we met. And it was pretty apparent that we were going to start some project together, and that's kind of where I landed.
Very cool. Now, the music that Between the Rain is playing, it's rock. Um, when we get into rock, sometimes it gets challenging. I know some people will call themselves kind of prog rock, but do you do you guys where do you guys feel like you fit in with music?
That's definitely been tough for us. We've had a lot of trouble kind of finding our niche.
Hmm.
Um, uh, we're kind of grungy. We'll definitely call ourselves hard rock. Um, we're like right on the edge of metal, I'd say, but not. We don't quite cross that line. Um, so yeah, I'd say like uh, maybe almost post grunge,
Okay.
something like that.
And the writing process of your music, because again, you mentioned original stuff. Is the whole band involved, or is there more somebody than someone else?
Yeah, it's pretty much a whole band process. One of us comes up with some piece, something we think sounds cool. A lot of the time, somebody else will just jump on it and
Hmm.
try to add to that. Um, we'll hash it out, whether it's like a week or like a year and a half. Um, and we work on that. And we like to say, like, we're basically like building a house, kind of.
Hmm.
Um, Somebody will come up with the foundation, and then it's up to the other two to sort of fill it in.
Gotcha.
Um, you know, just trying to make it sound solid. Kind of use the metaphor of knocking down pillars and seeing if the house still stands. And
Okay.
yeah, so that's kind of what we do.
Gotcha. And with that evolution, who do you feel has been an influence on the music that you're playing? Like I know so many times I talk to people and they'll mention, oh, I took this. I was getting this lick from James Jamerson, or I was getting this lick from Paul McCartney. What are your influences with the music that you guys are writing?
Definitely band influences happen to be like a lot of 90s bands, a lot of 90s rock alternative. We're huge fans of Chevelle, we're huge fans of Tool. We all love STP, a little bit of Soundgarden. So this grungy sort of definitely rock and roll sound, but
Gotcha.
always very melodic.
Very cool. And what projects do you have going on at this time? I know that you guys have got some neat stuff coming up.
Yeah, yeah. We're actually working on an EP now.
Hmm.
Uh, we're hoping to come out with it by the end of the summer.
Nice.
So we'll work on that. We'll play shows, obviously promote it for a while, and we're calling it the Knockoff.
Very cool. And I noticed that you guys are playing a lot in New York, which is a great place. If you have to do music, you've got a lot of possible venues in New York. So that's always a great thing. So are you planning any tours outside of that, maybe down the line, or?
Yeah, we're hoping to just kind of go down the East Coast a little bit, come back. We don't have anything huge planned yet,
Hmm.
but we're kind of hashing out details on
Gotcha.
what can be done.
Well, that's part of the fun. There's so much of adventure in front of you that you kind of go, okay, this is going to be pretty interesting. And I always ask because females playing bass. This is always a challenging thing. There is a certain amount of, I'm going to say, resistance in the bass community with some of the males when they see a woman playing, because somehow they're going to assume that there's no way that she could possibly play. And I love it when somebody like Nick West, or I can go on Antonella Massa, Angeline Saris just comes in and throws down, and they just like, like unbelievable. It makes no difference. Have you found it more difficult being a woman playing, or has that been something that's been drawing, it maybe even helped you?
Uh, yes and no. I definitely say it's not only a bass club thing.
Hmm.
There are several areas where that is the case. And sometimes, yeah, I've been in a lot of scenes, a lot of situations where it's definitely like a big boys club, and I kind of shake some masculinity when I walk in, and I
Gotcha.
decide, no, I'm playing now. Like, um, but I've also been really well received, and I've had people come up to me and say, "You're a great bass player," and
Hmm.
not with for a girl or for a woman, and just like and just be really accepting. So yeah, I've definitely seen both sides of the coin. Um,
Gotcha.
but I do most of the time, I do definitely um, feel almost out of place.
Mm.
I make my place in it, but but
Gotcha.
it's definitely harder in the hard rock metal scenes, you know, um, to assert yourself as a woman, and you definitely have to be strong enough to walk in and hold your head high and not
Hmm.
take anything from anyone.
Well, and a big part of the challenge is also image, because it's kind of interesting because I get to chat, I get to talk with so many musicians, and to look at them. I mean, if you just ran into them in the street, you kind of go, "Oh, I feel a little distance away. The dude is badass. I just don't want to, I just don't want to tangle with him." Of course, I know in New York, people don't make eye contact at all. They just don't. You just walk along. But when you get a chance to actually talk to them, they're really nice guys, or nice ladies, and no matter how cutting edge they may seem by appearance, that is kind of part of the act, and it's kind of part of the the shtick that they're putting out there, so that when they're on stage or when they're in the situation, you go, okay, yeah, I totally buy it because they're edgy, and I'm getting that, whereas, but some of the kindest, most wonderful, the least that you might expect just to look at them, you kind of go, don't let the tattoos, don't let anything change,
Yeah, absolutely.
because they're cool. They're really nice people, and they're great musicians, and there's a lot going on in there. I'd always be remiss if we don't talk a little bit about gear, because bassists tend to have gear acquisition syndrome. So tell us a little bit about what you're playing. I know you like that original
Um,
bass the best.
yeah. So that bass is my Dean bass,
Hmm.
affectionately called Biscuit. And four-string bass. I've always loved four-string. I've always played fingerstyle. Um, uh, Usually the Dario strings. That's about it. It's,
Amplification. What do you?
right now I have a GK head
Mhm.
with a Mesa cab. A 1x10 just because I got tired of lugging around my 4x10 around.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that, and I plug in sometimes. Sometimes I'll have a big muff. Sometimes I won't, but pretty simple
Gotcha.
usually.
So you're not working a lot of the pedal stuff.
Not yet, and I feel like I probably will eventually. but not quite yet.
Well, and one of the things as we evolve, there's finding your voice and finding what works for you. And with the pedal, there's a whole bunch of musicians that don't use them and don't need them, and you kind of go, okay. As a matter of fact, recently, one of the interviews I was doing, a bassist was telling me it's more in your hands. Your sound is what you're doing with your hands versus what I'm pumping through. And granted, you can get some very interesting sounds with pedals and things like that. And I think that once you start going down the rabbit hole of pedals, then you're in this experimental, okay, what sound am I going to come up with this, and what sound am I going to do with this? And it gets to be a huge investment because, like, if you have one pedal that does one thing, and then you got another pedal that does another thing, you got another one that does another thing, you go, okay, this is turning into a lot. And it's another thing to carry. So by the time you're said and done, you're like, oh my gosh, this pedal board weighs, 50 pounds. I wish I just didn't have it anymore. Just go without the pedals. So very cool. And recording coming up, some touring. What aspirations do you have for kind of the longer future? I know there's a lot happening right now, but what would you like to see? Where would you like to see yourself, let's say, in 3 to 5 years?
I'm not actually sure. I know I want to be playing. I know I want to be playing a lot, but it's really funny. I've always just kind of taken it as it comes. I've just recently started on some session opportunities, which I hadn't expected to be doing. So in doing that, maybe I'll do some more of that. I feel like I'll always be playing in Between the Rain, and just kind of taking the opportunities as they come. That's kind of what I like doing.
Gotcha. And if you were to, let's say, meet a younger version of you, a girl who wants to play bass, now that you've got some experience and you've been, working at this, what advice would you give a young player that wants to do what you're doing now?
I would say persevere. keep doing what you love. Don't feel like you have to compromise all the time. I mean, compromise is good when it's necessary.
Sure.
Don't have to be virtuosic to be great. And just work hard. Really, it's a lot of hard work. Be professional. Be on time. Be kind. I find that being a musician is not unlike other professions where it's important just to remember who you are and where you came from, where you started, and just to generally be a good person. And it's easy to get wrapped up in like the idea of status or something. I know there's the talk of like musicians and egos, and I don't even like getting into that. But yeah, always good to just stay humble, do what you love doing, and remember why you got into doing it.
That is superb advice. And I will say, in my experience, I think most bass players live along that very same line because so many of them are just great people to talk to. They're really chill dudes. I mean, guitar players, it's a whole different story. But, the bass guys and gals, they're down to earth. They're chill people. They're always great. So I always love getting a chance to chat with folks. Well, Victoria, where's the best place for people to find out what's going on with the band? Where should they be looking?
Definitely check out Facebook. We're Facebook/Between the Rain Band. We have an Instagram as well. You can also find us on Spotify. So, yeah.
Okay. And website per se for the band, I think I found betweenthereinband.com.
Yes. Yeah. And we're going to be making some changes to it soon, but that's also relevant.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, Victoria, for taking time to chat with us. We wish you the greatest success, and we're looking forward to hearing more music from Between the Rain and yourself, and keep us in mind and let us know what's going on as things are coming up. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. So, folks, you've seen it here. Victoria Rothman coming to you via Skype on Bass Musician Magazine. Keep it low.